Hi, everyone, and welcome to Cope with Hope. Today, I have my gorgeous niece, Maddie Massy-Westropp, all the way from Adelaide, and she's going to tell us about her super interesting life. She brings science stories to life as a writer and a blogger, and she's recently started a vlog or a YouTube channel, rather, called Mads from the Lab. This girl, child for me, because she's my niece, has studied for many, many years biology in Australia as well as in Singapore and Germany. She did her bachelor's in biology and then her master's. And along the way, she's done some very interesting things. She studied gut bacteria and microorganisms in Antarctica, and also the effect of the immune system on cancer patients. And during the pandemic, she's also worked in a COVID lab. She soon realized that lab work was not for Mads, and now she does research work. So, thank you so much, Maddie, for coming on board. And will you tell us a little bit about your journey last year in 2020 and when you decided to change tracks?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, by the way.
Yes.
So 2020, as for everyone, was a really interesting year for me. I started the year out in Adelaide, South Australia, doing my master's in science.
Yes.
I was at the lab bench doing research, and I thought that was what I was going to continue doing. But then COVID hit, and suddenly people couldn't be going into the lab anymore, couldn't be doing their research.
Yes.
And I had to really consider what to do next, whether to keep going and keep doing my research or have a rethink. And I think what I realized, and perhaps this was a realization that had been building for some time, was that I wanted to change career paths and try something different. So I decided to finish my degree, and I was looking around for jobs, and I got a role with Boston Consulting Group as a consultant. So that is basically when you help a range of different businesses to solve their business problems, which I find really, really exciting. But the one catch was that I couldn't start the job until the middle of this year because of COVID.
Yes.
So I suddenly had an entire 12 months stretching out ahead of me with nothing really planned, no job, no idea what to do.
Yes.
So I decided to start my blog, which is called Mads from Lab. So that is where I combine my interest in science and my love of talking to people and telling stories
Yes.
together in one. So what I do is I look at new developments in medical science that we see in the news headlines, and then I unpack them so that they're easier to understand for everyone. And I also make videos, which is really fun. So that's my new YouTube channel.
I love your sweating and water video.
Oh, thank you. That was fun to make.
Yeah. So it's like very, very creative. And I mean, it's wonderful that you're putting this together. So is your job, like as a researcher with them, a full-time job, or you do get enough time to do Mads from the Lab as well?
Okay, so at the moment, I am actually between my jobs. So I stopped doing my master's in March of 2020. So I finished that up, and then I had about a year or more before starting my role with Boston Consulting Group.
Yes.
So I actually start that next month. So it's really cool. At the moment, I am not really working full time. I'm just working on my blog. And for the past few months as well, I've been able to do some part-time work for SA Pathology, doing part of their COVID response, working in a laboratory.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what would you say is one of the lessons that you learned in 2020?
That's a really good question. I think that the main lesson I learned was that no matter where you are or what job you're in or what's happening in your work life, always remember your personal identity and what your values are and what you want to be doing and putting out into the world. So I had found myself in a position where suddenly I wasn't in the same career path anymore. Everything was changing and I had no idea what was going on. And something that really gave me a sense of security and purpose was formulating this blog and communicating science to people. And I know that regardless of what job I'm doing, where I'm working, what's going on in the economy, I have that as my identity. I'm a communicator. I'm someone who loves science, who loves health. And I can keep building on that personal identity and that personal brand throughout my life. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing. So I think that's something I learned.
That's a wonderful thing. That's a very important thing for everyone to really learn what makes them tick in a way, right? And to continue doing that. That's sort of that's what roots you, no matter what else is happening.
Exactly.
Very well said. And Maddie, will you tell us a little bit about gut health? Because it's so important today with all that's available in the market that you get tempted to eat and drink. And, like when, my grandmother's time, food was really super healthy. You didn't get canned and tinned food. You just had to buy the vegetables that were like seasonal and you ate like that. You ate like seasonal food. Now it's very different. So would you tell us a little bit about gut health?
So gut health is one of my interests. I used to do a little bit of research on it. I was looking a lot at something that we call the microbiome. And the microbiome is inside your gut, and it's a group of all different kinds of microorganisms, mainly bacteria, which can influence your health, your digestion, everything really. So every individual in the world has a slightly different microbiome, and that's influenced by their environment, so where they live, their overall health, and of course what they eat. So it's something that is still really complex and something that we're still really trying to unpack with research.
Yes.
But definitely your diet has a huge, huge, huge influence on the microbiome.
Yeah.
So certain bacteria in the gut feed on certain things. Certain bacteria thrive when there are certain food sources around. And depending on what you eat, you might have slightly more good bacteria or slightly more bad bacteria. And if that balance sort of tips towards the bad bacteria, you might get, different diseases, or you might get things like irritable bowel syndrome and so on. So while it's hard for me to comment specifically on what kind of foods are going to be promoting good gut health, I can definitely say that your diet does play a huge role, and that's something that we're still kind of working out.
Okay. Is there anything that you prescribe that, well, I know there's no such thing as a magic pill, but is there anything that you could, say that you should, perhaps eat this every day and it may help your gut, or there's nothing like that because it's very individual?
I think I'm hesitant to sort of say, okay, this is definitely what you should do because everyone is so different.
Yes.
But something that I generally practice in my own life is not necessarily eating one particular thing every day, but eating a variety of things and making sure that you get all sorts of different nutrients. And also one thing that I say often is work out what's best for you, because what one person might really like in their diet and what might work really well for them and their gut health might be different for you, because you have two different microbiomes and two different bodies.
Yeah, I've seen that in our family. So there's me, my sister, my children, and everybody actually responds and reacts to different things. So there's no one rule. And I think it's a very important thing that you've taught me. And I hope the audience understands this. It's not one magic pill. For every individual, it's a different diet that works. That's really true, Maddie, because what I eat may be very good for my metabolic rate. And I've seen that. And I've seen the same thing for somebody else doesn't really work so well for them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, that's super, super interesting. And also, I'd like to ask you, so you worked in a COVID lab last year. Are you still working with that lab or no longer?
Mm. So I just finished up working with SA pathology doing the COVID response, and that was honestly an amazing experience.
Yes.
Very challenging at times, but really amazing. So I started working for them in June last year, just as the pandemic was really hitting its peak in Australia, especially in Melbourne. There were
Yes.
lots and lots of cases coming in, and our state borders were closed, and there were lockdowns all over the place, and it was really difficult. And I suppose I was searching for a way to feel like I was actually contributing. And
Yes.
as I have a background in research and working in biological science and working in lab environments, I applied to work for SA Pathology, and I got a job working in a COVID testing laboratory. So just about as close as you can get
Yes.
to the COVID response.
Yes.
And that was really, really amazing because over about the 9 months that I worked there, I got to see how we could start to really control the pandemic and the case numbers. And, it was hard work from our end, but it was also all of the amazing involvement from the community and the participation of everyone that really drove the how things went in SA.
Okay, so do you feel it's been like contained?
Yes, I do. I think that in 2021 especially, I think things have been really well controlled. Obviously, there have been small flare-ups, in
Yes.
Adelaide, in Melbourne as well, Sydney, and now at the moment there's a small one in Queensland.
Okay.
I think overall Australia's handling of the pandemic has been incredible. And I can put that down to really excellent response from our pathologists, our scientists, our hospitals, our doctors, as well as community that is really cooperative with things like lockdowns and restrictions. So
Okay.
I think that now, especially with the vaccine coming in,
Yes.
we can be really optimistic about the pandemic in 2021.
Yes, I mean, that's quite reassuring, Maddie. And I do know that
Mm.
you've had both your vaccines, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So, as part of my role dealing with COVID samples in the COVID testing lab, I was pretty much first in line to get the vaccine, which is super exciting. I made a video about that on my YouTube channel, actually.
Yes.
So, I got the Pfizer jab, and I'm still feeling really great. And feeling a lot more confident now in terms of going out into the community and
Yes.
moving around the country.
Okay, that's quite wonderful. And now, on a different topic altogether, Maddie, what does hope mean for you? The word hope.
I think for me, hope means knowing that there's always a way forward, there's always a way around, regardless of where you are in your life. I
Yes.
think there are moments for everyone where you feel like, oh gosh, there's nothing I can do. All the options are tried. There's no way out of this. And I've definitely felt that. I felt that sometimes in 2020, during the pandemic. I'm sure everyone probably felt that at some
Yes.
stage. But regardless of what was going on, there was always a way forward. So I think that is what hope means to me.
There's always a way forward. And if you
Mm.
have some advice to give our audience about what they can take forward with them into 21 and 22, what would that be?
I think my main piece of advice and something that I really learned, especially last year, is to be flexible. So of course, in your life, you're going to meet obstacles,
Yes.
and it's going to change your plan for your life, but that's okay. You might end up in a completely different situation to what you expected, but that's okay.
Yes.
So for me, for example, I thought, okay, I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to work in the lab. That's what I'm going to do. That's what my whole life is going to be. And the pandemic happened. Some realizations happened for me about how I was feeling in the workplace and what I actually wanted to do. And I ended up in a completely different position, and I couldn't be happier. So my advice is, if you come across an obstacle, your pathway around it or out of it might be completely different to what you've pictured, and that is totally fine. Just go with it.
Oh, that's lovely, Maddie. And what would you say is Maddie's Mojo?
I like that. I'm going to have to use that.
Maddie's Magic Mojo.
Maddie's Magic Mojo.
Yes.
Gosh. Okay. Hold on to your personal identity. Don't lose. Okay, so my Magic Mojo would be never forget yourself. So wherever you are in the world, whatever job you're doing, whatever your situation is, never forget what you truly believe, what your values are, and what you want to put out into the world. And as long as you stay true to that and you keep putting that out there, people will be drawn to you and they will want to work with you. They want to be friends with you. And I think success will come your way.
Maddie's Magic Mojo. Thank you so much, Maddie. That was wonderful.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Thanks. Okay, guys, if you like this video, do press like, subscribe to my channel, and also subscribe to Mads from the Lab. I'll put the links below. Don't forget to do that.
Hello, it's Maddie here, and I'm filming this from my apartment in Melbourne, where I'm self-isolating for the next 2 weeks. This is because I was recently in New South Wales, which has become the centre of an outbreak of the highly transmissible COVID-19 variant Delta. At the moment, many people in New South Wales are locking down in the hope that they'll avoid a bigger surge in cases. So at the moment, we've all got our fingers crossed and also all going out to get vaccinated in the hope that things are going to get better.